This is drugs on brain.
Ow! That's hot. Dare taught an entire generation to stay away from drugs. And I ain't no egghead, so I blindly followed that advice for years. Yep, drugs are bad. No drugs for me. No sir. Anyways, drugs are bad because they'll ruin your brain. But how? Tell me, Darren. How exactly is one drink gonna derail my entire homeostatic state? Oh. My apologies. Wait, dude, you're taking this shit wildly out of context just to scare kids. I mean, yeah, it kind of works like that, but it's far from the truth. You mean to tell me that your entire government-funded program is held up on a half-truth? Decades of propaganda to mislead the masses, all to fund Dr. Yif? Okay, for me to actually explain what's wrong with Phony the Tiger over here, let's get some background knowledge. The false claims that drugs will permanently ruin your brain. And yeah, like, I guess in the hyper-extreme cases, you could encounter that obstacle. However, in a controlled setting with a properly employed protocol, drugs should prove to be generally safe. Look no further than caffeine, the world's most widely used psychoactive drug, with approximately 90% of the world utilizing it. But if that's not enough to convince you that Alex the liar was misleading us, then look no further than a little process called neuroplasticity. The term was originally coined by the father of neuroscience himself, Santiago Ramon y Cajal. Wow, I fucking brutally murdered his name. I am so sorry. Anyways, neuroplasticity was used to describe a non-pathological changes in the structure of adult brains, but it was not officially coined until the late 1960s due to the idea that there were a fixed number of neurons in the brain that died throughout the natural aging process. Marion Diamond from the University of California in Berkeley published the first evidence that officially proved the existence of neuroplasticity in 1964. So now that we know that the brain is just as plastic as a middle school bathroom, it's time to discuss the types. No thanks, bro. I'm not smoking that. Is that lime, cucumber, mint? What the fuck? Forget popcorn lung. This is the type of shit Congress needs to crack down on. I wouldn't wish that fucking flavor combination on my worst enemy. God, Connie wouldn't even give that to Pete, dude. And the plastics are both structural and functional. Structural plasticity is the actual developmental portion of the brain itself, like building new neurons and shit. Whereas functional is like the setting on a shower head. It controls the sensitivity of the neurotransmitter, and also the amount of neurotransmitters that are sent. This is the area that we're going to focus on. It's because the functional plasticity is actually responsible. Objection! This positive drug effect can actually be best observed in individuals with ADHD. These individuals are often prescribed stimulants, and which I first thought was fucking crazy. My logic was that these people are already hyperactive. Why would you give them more stimulation and therefore make them more energetic? Well, that's because the idea behind the stimulants is to give the person enough neurochemical motivation to be productive by giving them stimulants to bring them to a homeostatic state akin to that of a person without ADHD. The long-term results of the stimulants is to regulate the body to bring it to a new sort of homeostatic state, whereas then the brain gets used to function at this more typical state over longer periods of time, where it then adapts to be better functioning at this more typical state due to the plasticity mentioned before. As for functionality, stimulants work primarily by upregulating the firing speed and the amount of specific neurotransmitter that is present. So to continue with the ADHD example, you would likely encounter a person that has little of the dopamine transmitter in their brain. But once they take the properly dosed stimulant, they would hopefully reach their baseline. Now, what's important to note is that these people with ADHD have often developed for a significant period of time without the stimulant, so the ADHD brain have subsequently adapted for the lack of dopamine due to the plasticity. This would result in their brain developing around having a low homeostatic baseline for dopamine, in which that they're craving that new high each and every time. Now, this is me going out on a limb, but I would theorize that this part of the brain would adapt in a way to min-max its limited supply of dopamine in some sort of way, whether it's heightening the receptor sensitivity or decreasing the amount of receptors. And this decrease in receptors would be congruent with the smaller volume of the areas of the brain which these receptors are located. Another anecdotal thing to note is how these people are so pleasure-seeking. My brother has a sugar addiction, or he would watch short-form content. It's almost as if they're trying to self-medicate this dopamine through whichever means they can get to reset homeostatic baseline. A more common example would be that of the caffeine from earlier. Most people use caffeine for a similar reason. You've heard of the "don't talk to me till I've had my coffee" bullshit. This is due to the person having adjusted their homeostatic baseline to their consistent caffeine intake. To avoid this from happening, unlike in the ADHD example, you have to look at which type of plasticity is being affected the most. In this example with the caffeine, you notice that the dopamine is being down-regulated, so that way it can adjust for the dopamine spike once the person drinks their caffeine. This would insinuate that it's functional plasticity and that the transmitters have been down-regulated. So to get them back to baseline, you need to take a break from the drug, as then the body will realize that it can no longer rely on the outside source for the supplementation of the neurotransmitter, and instead begins to upregulate the natural production of the neurotransmitter until you're back at your homeostatic baseline. This is why caffeine breaks suck. Part of the withdrawals is the biological lack of happiness. But what if I told you you could avoid all of that? Well, effectively avoid it. By employing a stim break, you can resist your tolerance without any damage due to the functional plasticity effect. I would recommend a 3-week on and a 1-week off approach. This best min-maxes results as it doesn't allow enough time for the doses to get out of hand, and by the time the break does come, you shouldn't have built up enough of a tolerance to the drug, so that way the withdrawals should be negligible, thus resulting in 3 weeks of hyperproductivity and 1 week of regular productivity. So what do you think of that? Oh, so looks like they caught this predator a while ago. I guess they had to shut it down once their mascot went from eating buffalo to little girl's toes. Well, if you want to learn more about these sort of things, I got a video right here that'll do the trick. And until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Love you. Mwah.